And when I got in there, all I knew was make sure I come out victorious. But people don't respect the mental part about that. Like, people don't respect it. All they want to say is, oh, you were scared or you ran.
So it is not necessary, it is unnecessary to go in through that process and blame the money, because it has nothing to do with the money.
Guys like him, man, I just try to ignore them, because at the end of the day, I could really get on his ass with his business and talk about what he doing that's dumb as a motherfucker. It's a bunch of dumb shit, Mr.
Shakur Stevenson stripped of his 135 lightweight WBC crown. Hit the Tyson belt. They stripped him. He just stuck a toe.
After the biggest win of his career, Shakur Stevenson called the WBC crooks and refused to hand over $100,000. Terence Crawford jumped in, firing shots at the organization, telling them they are still mad about what happened between them. But here is the question nobody in boxing is asking. Could Shakur actually take the WBC to court and win? The answer involves a federal lawsuit that changed boxing history laws that protect fighters that most fans have never even heard of, and a legal precedent that proves sanctioning bodies are not untouchable. Just days earlier, everything looked perfect for Shakur Stevenson. On January 31, 2026, inside Madison Square Garden, Shakur delivered a masterclass against Teofimo Lopez. The fight was not controversial, and it was not close. He controlled the entire pace, shut down Lopez's offense, and left no doubt in the judges' minds. By the end of the night, Shakur walked away with the Ring Magazine title and the WBO junior welterweight belt, officially becoming a 4-division world champion, a milestone that places fighters in elite generational company. Then came the major twist. Within days, the WBC announced they were stripping Shakur of their lightweight title.
Listen, I thoroughly don't give a shit. And to go further, I don't think Shakur Stevenson should give one shit.
The official explanation was procedural. They stated fighters are not permitted to hold championships across different weight classes under separate sanctioning bodies simultaneously. But Shakur did not accept that explanation. He fired back, accusing the WBC of retaliating because he refused to pay their $100,000 sanctioning fee for a fight they were not even involved in. His words were direct. According to Shakur, the WBC had nothing to do with this fight to begin with, and this was not an isolated incident.
The WBC, in a rush to do nothing, can't give this dude a week.
Just months earlier, Terence Crawford himself had been stripped under eerily similar circumstances. To Shakur's team, this did not look like rule enforcement. It looked personal, and that is where things started to feel bigger than one single belt. To understand why Shakur's situation matters, you have to go back to 1998. That is when German boxer Graziano Raccogiani did something almost unheard of. He beat the system. Raccogiani defeated Michael Nunn to win the WBC Light Heavyweight Championship after Roy Jones Jr. had vacated the title. The WBC officially recognized Raccogiani as the world champion. His career trajectory changed overnight. Bigger fights, bigger money, global recognition. Then everything unraveled. Roy Jones Jr. decided he wanted the belt back. Instead of ordering a fight or following standard procedures, the WBC made a stunning move. They reinstated Jones as champion and informed Raccogiani that his title reign had been a typographical error, not a disputed decision, not a rules violation, simply a typo.
Whoever wants some can come get some. They know what to do. Call HBO, tell HBO what to tell them what you want to do. And y'all know Roy Jones Jr. bars none.
Thank you very much.
Raccogiani did not accept this. He took the WBC to United States federal court, arguing the organization violated its own regulations and destroyed his earning potential. Sponsors disappeared, title defenses vanished. His market value collapsed, and against all odds he won. In July 2004, the WBC quietly settled the case. Raccogiani received financial compensation, and the boxing world was forced to acknowledge a reality most fans still do not realize. Sanctioning bodies are not untouchable. That case did not just embarrass the WBC. It set a legal precedent. Here is where things get even more serious. Most fans have never heard of the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act, but it may be the most powerful tool a fighter has outside the ring. Passed in 1996 and expanded in 2000, the act was designed to protect boxers from exploitative practices by promoters and sanctioning organizations. Congress did not mince words when they wrote it. They explicitly found that boxing organizations regularly engaged in anti-competitive behavior and abused their power over fighters' careers. Under the law, sanctioning bodies are legally defined as boxing service providers. That means they have obligations, especially when it comes to transparency, disclosures, and fees. Before collecting money or enforcing punishments, they are required to clearly disclose the basis for their actions. The act also gives fighters the right to challenge unfair treatment, including questionable title stripping that impacts their livelihood. In legal terms, belts are not just trophies, they are economic assets. If Shakur Stevenson argues that the WBC stripped him as retaliation for refusing to pay a fee or failed to follow its own procedures, he could potentially claim protection under federal law, not just boxing politics. And that is the part that could change everything. Because if this ever moved beyond social media and into a courtroom, it would not just be about Shakur Stevenson. It would be about whether the old rules of boxing power still apply in the modern era. If this ever moved beyond headlines and into a courtroom, Shakur's legal team would not be starting from scratch. There are several angles they could explore, and each one cuts directly into how sanctioning bodies operate behind the scenes.
Open letter with the boxing community regarding the Muhammad Ali Act. For all the fans watching, why is this issue so important right now?
Well, there's a lot of confusion, very unfortunate concern around the boxing community, unnecessary attacks, unnecessary noise that has been created.
First, there is breach of contract. If Shakur had an active agreement with the WBC, whether written or implied through participation and rankings, the organization may have violated that relationship by stripping him immediately without due process. Courts often look closely at whether organizations followed their own timelines and notice requirements, not just whether they had the power to act. Then there is tortious interference, a legal concept that hits where it hurts most: money. Championship status is not symbolic. It determines purse splits, pay-per-view points, sponsorship leverage, and international marketability. By removing that title, the WBC may have directly interfered with Shakur's ability to negotiate future fights at the highest level. Another major argument centers on rule violations. Just like in the Rakajani case, the question would not be whether the WBC has rules, but whether they followed them. If their own regulations outlined a grace period review process or specific criteria for stripping a champion, skipping those steps could be legally significant. There is also the issue of arbitrary and inconsistent enforcement. Why do some champions get months or even years to unify move divisions or resolve conflicts, while Shakur was stripped in a matter of days?
Claim to own the sport. No organization, no league, no boxer, no champion, no one person. Boxing is a great sport. It's a worldwide sport.
Courts take selective enforcement seriously, especially when it appears personal or retaliatory. Finally, there is restraint of trade, a phrase that appears directly in federal boxing law. Congress explicitly warned against sanctioning bodies limiting a fighter's earning ability through anti-competitive behavior. Add in the measurable loss of income, and suddenly this is not just a boxing dispute. It is a business case, and legal experts are clear on one thing: this would not be unprecedented. Fighters have challenged sanctioning bodies before, and sometimes they have won. But that leads to the most powerful part of Shakur's potential case. This is where things get uncomfortable for the WBC, because the strongest argument Shakur could make is not emotional. It is mathematical.
Shakur has told the world, I'm 135 pounds. I plan on competing at 135 unless there's a situation that presents itself.
Boxing fans have watched countless champions hold belts while chasing bigger opportunities. Some moved up divisions without being stripped. Others delayed mandatory defenses for years. In many cases, the WBC granted exemptions, extensions, or outright exceptions. So why was Shakur treated differently? That question alone opens the door to the double standard argument. If the WBC enforced its rules strictly in some cases and flexibly in others, a court could view that as arbitrary and capricious decision-making, a legal term that judges do not take lightly. Shakur did not hide his belief. He accused the WBC of targeting him because of their issues with Terence Crawford, saying, in essence, you have beef with Bud, so you are coming at me. If that claim could be supported by timelines, communications, or patterns of enforcement, it changes the narrative entirely. At that point, the stripping would not look like governance. It would look like retaliation. And courts are far less willing to protect organizations that punish individuals selectively, especially when those decisions affect livelihoods. But even with a strong argument, the road forward would not be easy. For all the leverage Shakur might have, there are real barriers that could stop a lawsuit before it ever gains momentum.
I want to go up to fight Teo, but I want to come back down to 135. So basically, he's almost telling the WBC, let me go up there, I will come back down. And with what the WBC are going through right now, and this battle with Zuffa, where, you know, they've got some real big players and power over there, and they're saying F the belts, and WBC are fighting, saying none of the belts.
The WBC's first line of defense would be simple: their rulebook. They would argue their regulations clearly prohibit holding championships across different weight classes and organizations, and that Shakur knowingly violated those rules. Even more important, the WBC's bylaws grant them sole discretion in enforcing championships. That phrase exists for a reason. It is designed to shield the organization from legal challenges. Then there is the issue of jurisdiction. The WBC is headquartered in Mexico, operates internationally, and sanctions fights across dozens of countries. Determining where a lawsuit could even be filed would be complex and heavily contested. There is also the practical reality of money and time. Federal litigation is not cheap. Legal fees could climb into the hundreds of thousands, possibly more. And history shows these cases do not move quickly. The Rakajani lawsuit dragged on for years. Shakur is in his physical prime. Every year spent fighting in court is a year not spent building his legacy in the ring. And there is always the risk that the financial recovery would not match the legal cost.
A public back and forth with one of the biggest names in boxing right now. Now, Shakur Stevenson is one of the biggest names in boxing. And the thing about Shakur as well, you piss him off, this guy will go straight to social media and make it known that he's pissed off. And that's what he's done. He's made it known what the WBC are wanting, or wanted for him, or from him, sorry, which was
From the WBC's perspective, they would argue they acted within their authority, followed internal procedures, and enforced rules that fighters agree to when entering their rankings. Which brings us to what legal experts are actually saying. Sports law attorneys familiar with boxing disputes tend to agree on one thing. Very few of these cases ever reach a jury. Most sanctioning body lawsuits are resolved quietly. Settlements happen behind closed doors, often because organizations want to avoid creating legal precedent that other fighters could use. Experts point out that the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act gives fighters more leverage than they realize, especially when it comes to disclosures, fees, and consistency of enforcement. Several law firms now openly advertise experience representing fighters against sanctioning bodies, something that would have been unthinkable decades ago. And in a recent federal case in 2023, a professional boxer was awarded $1.3 million after expert testimony demonstrated economic harm caused by unfair practices. Still, the consensus is cautious. Shakur may have grounds to challenge the decision, but litigation is risky, expensive, and unpredictable. Some attorneys suggest an alternative route: filing formal complaints with state athletic commissions or the Association of Boxing Commissions. These pathways do not carry the same financial risk, but they also lack the immediate impact of a lawsuit. The strategic question remains. Would suing actually help Shakur, or would it quietly make him a problem no sanctioning body wants to deal with? That question leads to the bigger picture. Whether Shakur ever files a lawsuit or not, the timing of this controversy matters. The boxing landscape is shifting. Dana White and Zuffa Boxing are openly challenging the traditional model. Terence Crawford walked away rather than continue paying sanctioning fees.
They ain't gonna tell me, I ain't even apologize. Like, who the fuck you think I am? Boy, you better slap your fucking self. Ain't paying your ass shit. Fuck you talking about pay you.
Fighters are publicly questioning where their money goes and why. The old system relies on silence and compliance. And that silence is breaking. If Shakur sued and won, it would not just be about his belt. It could force sanctioning bodies to apply rules, consistently disclose fee structures transparently, and rethink how much power they really have. Of course, there is another outcome. The system could dig and isolate fighters who push back and continue business as usual. Either way, something is changing, and fighters now have more leverage and more information than ever before. Which brings us to the final question. The legal reality is complicated. Shakur Stevenson likely has a case at least enough to challenge the decision seriously. History shows it can be done. Federal law exists to protect fighters in exactly these situations, but the practical costs are enormous. Time, money, career momentum, and the risk of becoming an outsider in a sport that still relies on relationships. For now, Shakur's strategy appears clear. Alright everyone, stay tuned for the latest in boxing news, highlights, events, and stories. Subscribe to Ring Headquaterzz and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Be sure to watch our other videos too. Until next time, take care and stay safe.